Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. My dear esteemed brothers and sisters, scholars, teachers, and professionals in this field. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be with you today and to answer this call. As for today's presentation, I'd like to start with this short story on the first time Bitcoin was used in a transaction. This is in 2010 when this gentleman was hungry. He wanted to buy a pizza, and that he offered 41 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas. So, and then for $25 investment, a person from Britain was able to get these pizzas delivered, and then in return get these 10,000 Bitcoins, which are now worth $700 million. And below you can see a progression about the purchasing power of one Bitcoin unit over the years. Obviously, there is something explosive in this the growth in the purchasing power of the Bitcoin, which made it the center point of many discussions and conversations. And today, Bitcoin is part of the conversation that I would like to share with you today. And I would like to emphasize that usually the nature of my presentations is really emphasize discussion and exchange of ideas and suggestions, and not in any way final conclusions. But it is really in the spirit of tawasul bil haqq, tawasul bil sabr, and nasiha for each other. So this is one thing that since we're talking about Maqasid Institute, and we discussed that we always start with our objective. What are we trying to achieve? And always I find this verse to be, and this ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran Kareem, to be foundational for this conversation. And Surah Al-Qasas, وَابْتَغِ فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ وَلَا تَبْغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. So this is really the spirit also of this discussion today, and seeking this أَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. One executive summary here I would like to go over quickly is that, when we're talking about cryptocurrencies, we're talking about over 22,000 versions of cryptocurrencies that can be divided or classified in 7 to 10 to 11 to 15 different major categories. So we're talking about a vast area. There are pros and cons for any one of these currencies. And then the Islamic positions should go beyond just halal haram into a bit more nuanced, conversation. I'm going to apply the economic research phenomena and phenomenon framework that we have developed at the Maqasid Institute. And it is also powered by the Maqasid methodology. And then, and there's deep and strong importance for us Muslims and other concerned people of this world to join the cryptocurrency conversation and advocate for holistic real solutions. Generally, what is money? And I know many of the people are here are either in banking or have strong background in economics, so this is elementary. So I need to fly quickly through these few slides. But really, many different items or ideas or concepts was used as money over the years, over the thousands of years. But generally, conventional economics, money definition is based on not on any intrinsic value, since we already use fiat money, but then it is based on its function. So here, these are the three major functions of money: medium of exchange, unit of account, and store of value. And sometimes we add a unit of deferred, for accounting purposes. So and these are the functionality of money. But one quick note here, I consider fiat money to be governed by a social contract that its purchasing power does not diminish quickly beyond a certain speed. So that is just a quick comment on what I think is governed fiat money. Again, a quick overview of what money and how money was used or perceived in Islamic history and scholarship. Money sometimes is discussed under al-mal, which is really more of a wealth. And then there is also the concept of al-nuqud, which is more specifically discusses currency and currencies. And there is strong and rich tradition of discussing currencies and the minting of money, the supply of money, and the debasement of money, as well as the different forms money used. And here, what's important for me is that I want to just widen the scope, and that when we think about money from an Islamic point of view, it is not only gold, it's not only silver. I personally don't think dinar and dirham is holy or something mystic about them specifically. I think this is all as part of what we call mu'amalat realm. And in the realm of mu'amalat, the keyword is flexibility while trying to achieve some of the objectives of the Shariah. But the form of how we achieve that is on the flexible side. Indeed, the first what we call Islamic, sometimes termed Islamic coin, or coin that has actually the name of the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or kalimat shahada, happened about 80 years after Hijrah. So that it really took a long time. Before that, Muslims were using Roman and Persian coins, among other means of exchange and payment. And then cryptocurrencies were discussed and defined, so I will skip this one. But this is important here. So this is 7 of potentially even more categories of cryptocurrencies that we can talk about. So when you talk about cryptocurrencies, there are the coins, which are like Bitcoin is considered a cryptocurrency coin, and then Ethereum, for example. These are the 2 most famous ones. And these have actually properties that they can potentially be used as a medium of exchange or even as a store of value. And the conversation today would probably be most applicable to coins, but it is really very important to understand that there are many, many other categories of cryptocurrencies. So the field is not just confined to one. Some of them are really no different than other conventional means of payment, or share more categories of more characteristics with other more familiar means. So there are tokens and stable coins, which are just simply linked to a currency. And then there are the meme coins, which are really created as a joke, and suddenly the joke became real and it became, with a value, like Doge and Shiba, coins. And then the 7th category is that when central banks issue digital currencies, now suddenly that changes the whole conversation altogether, and suddenly we have a very important competitor in the field. And there are, for example, Nigeria e-Naira, and there's, many other countries that actually have issued their own digital currencies, and specifically, cryptocurrency. Here, there is huge debate taking place over this about cryptocurrencies, and the major challenge with this debate is that sometimes we're not clear on which one of these categories of cryptocurrencies are we talking about, because each one of them will fit in one or more of these critiques, or this critiques will apply to them, and sometimes will not apply. So this again, there is a huge need for us to either go by and kind of classify and judge each one of these 20,000 categories of cryptocurrencies, or select the top most popular one and go through them. And that will be a long conversation. But generally, the critique is in 3 major categories. Is that just the nature of this money? It is nothing. It is nothing backed. It is actually have no intrinsic value. And that is really a very problematic concept when you start talking about intrinsic value, because that takes us to, okay, what is exactly the intrinsic value of gold? Is it just simply, it is in demand, it is popular, so on and so forth, versus it's actually something that you can use to survive, for example, like water or food. Then and then the other major area of complained about many scholars of Islam is that who creates it and who controls it. Yes, this is an important area for discussion, but not necessarily for the reason that people raise this discussion. Because, for example, there is nothing in Islam says that we have to have central bank authority or the government managing the money supply, because Muslims did not have any such authority managing money supply. Baitul Mal or Baitul Zakah at the time of the Prophet ﷺ did not really fulfill this function. And sometimes we just overload the discussion. And the problem with that, and one of the major problems with this, is that we limit our area of option. Why would we do such a thing? Why not give ourselves flexibility to deal with this emerging issue? And then the third major area is how cryptocurrencies are used and who is using them. Yes, there are potentially criminals using them, but there's sometimes situations where people under oppressed and oppressive regimes need to use cryptocurrencies. So it is not a definitive conversation here. There is no definitive ruling can be applied. And I can definitely go over any specific points and any one of these in the discussion period. So this is going to be quickly, but I want to acknowledge that there is a range of critiques that I know my colleagues at the International Union of Muslim Scholars have raised, and International Islamic Fiqh Academy raised, and in other places. And you can find fatwas for and against the use of cryptocurrencies. On the other side, some other people think of cryptocurrencies in general, and Bitcoin perhaps in particular, as as a savior from many of the ills and challenges that afflict the international monetary system. And there is a major issue. I personally have a major problem with this kind of approach, because it is exaggerated, it is not realistic, it does not really take into account the many challenges and pitfalls that is associated with this. So almost each one of these points listed here can be contradicted and can be challenged. So I'm really not convinced fully by these points. I think some of them do have merit, but then none of them is proof. So how do we move forward given all this discussion? So each side has some good points, and under certain circumstances, depending on what we are discussing, their points can be actually valid. And there is no simple binary answers. This is, again, we need to move from an issue is not just simply passing a judgment that this is halal or this is haram. It really all depends on context here. And then one way that we can use a more advanced or sophisticated approach as Muslims in general and as human beings in general is to use what we call economics phenomenon framework. The economic phenomenon framework that your colleagues at the Maqasid Institute and the Reimagining Economics and Finance program are trying to develop and advocate for is that at least starts with three dimensions when addressing any issue. What is the macro, micro, and the social dimensions involved in any phenomenon and the general phenomena we deal with, whether it is poverty, whether it is environment, destruction, and whether it is, neighbor relations, so on and so forth. Can we at least discuss these three dimensions and how they overlap and how they all, which is the next point here, fulfill the maqasid or the objectives or the higher objectives of Islam? And then here it's like this is we were like discussed. What is the spirit? Are we actually meeting the spirit of Islam, or we are only meeting the forms, or just meeting some kind of the letter? We're following the letter, but not the spirit of Islam. So the tasawwur. Next, each argument needs to be examined according to its various applications and application in each dimension. So one quick overview is that when we look at the Maqasid Shari'ah, as it has been traditionally discussed by many of our greatest scholars, whether it is Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh, that he attributes the overall objective of money, and then here's really more generalizing to wealth, then which applies then to money or to nuqud. In that, we're just really going after the protection of, faith, lives, minds, families, and wealth again. So that is, which is kind of each one of these elements support the other 5 elements. This is the traditional historical approach towards Maqasid al-Shari'ah. So, and one of the more recent scholars, Ibn Ashur, which is a well-known Maliki scholar from Tunisia, who passed away in 1973, may Allah have mercy on his soul. He kind of brings a more nuanced, more updated approach to this, to the objectives of Al-Wan, by putting it in these 5, and we can see some of these points really overlap with the 5, with the 3 functions of money. So he focuses on, the Sharia wants to make sure that we protect the value of money, so it does not lose purchasing power. It cares about clearly defining ownership of a currency and clearly avoiding overlapping and disputes in the ownership of money and wealth in general. And then it emphasizes circulation and growth and emphasizes fairness. So these are the 5 elements that Ibn Ashur focuses on. So then if we move on and try to apply the economic research phenomena, framework here, we say, okay, let's look at just a quick sample of some of the critical consideration and the macro, micro, and social dimensions here. So, and we want to be revelation centric. Now we start with these ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and related to our situation. So this is a famous ayah that is often taken and used, which is like emphasize that لكي لا يكون دولة كي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم. And sometimes we focus on this portion of the ayah without the full context, and we overgeneralize what this means. But I will go with the general sentiment here that there is definitely something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would like to set as an objective for us, because it's clearly would like to tell us that, especially when there is a big wealth that comes to a community and a society, make sure that you use that as an opportunity to enrich some other groups, the disadvantaged groups. So when there is, this is my interpretation of this, and not a redistribution of wealth, which can add other challenges involved. But under this dimension, then we can discuss about the complaint that fiat money is actually a form of riba. And this is incredibly problematic because most of fiqh councils consider fiat money as a valid form of payment and wealth, and has, zakah applies to it. It will create a huge challenge and difficulty. And then there's these other challenges that are also, but which is again one major issue that is I see absent when we discuss many issues under Islamic economics, is that we never really discuss the role of monetary policy and fiscal policy in managing the affair of a whole country, And what does that mean, and how it can really impact the welfare? If you have a contraction, if you have a recession, that we know as as economists that we can use monetary policy and fiscal policy to take the country out of recession and maybe have a smooth landing, and then later on promote growth. Where does this fit in the Islamic concept when there is a greater maslahah for the whole population, and that is at the expense of harm to a class of potentially the richest people in the community? Because many of these expansionary policies ends up being tax on the rich, a transfer of wealth from the rich to the poor. So here, critical questions in the macro dimension is that we can also go even more global level. How can the adoption of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency impact US dollar and US monetary policy hegemony? Because most small countries, no matter what, they're ultimately tied to the US monetary policy. So if the Federal Reserve Bank raises interest rate, then a country potentially like Bangladesh and even bigger countries like India and Japan are affected, and they have to also raise interest rate. And that impact even people in the Islamic banking sector, because they have to raise their profit rate, so on and so forth. So it has an impact on all of these areas. And then, but what about impact on weak official currencies? Do we actually want to adopt Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies? And when that lead to further weakening of the official currency in, for example, Bangladesh or Malaysia or elsewhere, and that leads to massive loss of wealth and massive increase in poverty and suffering. So sometimes I see the conversation around cryptocurrencies completely lacks this depth and this concern about the general welfare. Because sometimes if we consider our governments as not legitimate and not representative, so sometimes we don't care about what they say. But sometimes I would like to argue that even sometimes with a country that is maybe not fully legitimate, if we take a course of action or advocate for a course of action that makes the status quo of the regular people in the street worse off, then that is really something that we need to think carefully about, because we might be held accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about why did we not consider. At the macro level, there is this very important emphasis in the Quran and in the Sunnah that we should not get into تبخس الناس ولا تبخس الناس أشياءهم, that we really have to be just in our dealings and our measurement. And then there is this emphasis on providing full measure and fairness, and not to undervalue, shortchange, or defraud people in any form or shape, whether we are using cryptocurrencies or we are using fiat currency. And here some of the critical questions under this is when we talk about privately produced cryptocurrencies, that is a major challenge here. I see that, it said like 20% of the holdings of Bitcoins are inaccessible to people because simply they forgot their passwords. They cannot remember their password. If you remember a few years ago, there's this family, just lost even the hard drive in a garbage dump in the UK, trying to find it. And that's it. You could not find it. And then potentially millions of dollars in wealth and property is lost. This is something incredibly problematic from an Islamic point of view, because it is a major loss and a major, maybe, injustice. And there is this issue of that early adopters can make massive wealth, just like with the gentleman who was freely able to offer 10,000 cryptocurrencies, Bitcoins, for a couple of pieces because he's an early adopter. And then laws and promises are made to be broken. That is an incredibly important point that I want to emphasize. Almost any promise to keep the money supply or to the production of a certain cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, um, it is only a factor and a matter of time and pressure and incentive until it is subject to be broken. Why, how, all the algorithm prevent that. There are people who govern that algorithm and they can't change it because a human made and human can change it. So there is nothing sacred or divine or spiritual in any form or shape. Here, governments make promises and they break them, as well as people behind these bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. They can make promises as much and as long as they want, but can be broken either intentionally by the people who created that cryptocurrency, or because of hacking or developing and other technological need to break that monopoly or that algorithm. So just be careful that whatever you are putting your trust in, it may not be as solid, as strong as you think it is. Then the social dimension here, again, there is the same line that I started this conversation with. There is this important aspect in Islam that with everything we want and we have a higher purpose, and we also know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to enjoy the halal in this dunya and then to conduct ourselves with ihsan with each other and to avoid asad on earth. So these are incredibly important social values that we adopt and that we practice in day to day. And then it's very important that when we talk about a form of currency technology, we ask ourselves, how is this currency, how is this technology help us promote these values? And some of the critical conversation here is that is it just a tool, or is it actually can be something that can incentivize good behavior? Sometimes, like at the masjid or elsewhere, sometimes we hand our kids money so they can donate, and that gives our kids and ourselves, feeling of, the training to give sadaqah, for example. How does that get affected? Now, this is an important psychological and tarbiyah technique and approach. We might actually lose this if we follow some of these technologies. I would like to also emphasize that when we talk about social dimensions, sometimes we talk about unintended consequences. And the example of the Khalifa Umar bin Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu it's very interesting here, because at one point, with the short supply in gold coins and silver coins from the Romans and the Persians, and to facilitate small exchanges, Khalifa Umar considered the use of camel hide as a currency. And this idea was stopped, not because it is, it has to be gold or silver, it has to be this or that. The main reason it was people would simply go to go maybe slaughter many of these animals, especially these camels, and then just to get its hide and to turn into some kind of currency to use, and that would really hurt the animal wealth of and stock that are available. So we can see here very interesting case study here, where the impact on the community and the society is taken in relation to what might initially be seen as pure monetary discussion. So these are very important dimension here. So some of the conclusion I would like to reach here is that the cryptocurrency challenge is likely to evolve over time as they become more commonplace, and they will have some role. Beware of false advertising, promises, and attractive labels. Simply a person calling a cryptocurrency, this is an Islamic dinar, or this is an Islamic cryptocurrency, this is a gold backed cryptocurrency. It means nothing, absolutely nothing. You cannot just simply trust these slogans and words and titles. You have to really understand what is behind them, what is the governance, why does the governance really support these claims, and where is there a conflict of interest into selling people some of these solutions and then turn around and reneging on these promises? My firm belief that currencies are not investment assets. So if you want to think about Bitcoin as a currency, then it is not an investment asset. You do not invest in dollars or in any other currency. You use it as a store of value. I understand that you use it as to exchange, but simply, if say I'm investing in dollars to avoid my local currency losing value and inflation, well, that's not investment. That is simply protecting the purchasing power. So currencies are not investment assets. Seeking speculative profit should be discouraged. So if you say that, oh, well, this is like we saw in the example, the price of how many pizzas a Bitcoin can buy at the beginning of the lecture, if that is what you're seeking, this is speculative profit. And then Muslims should not be about speculative profit. Allah has given us the wealth and this money to do good on earth, not to speculate. In speculative profit, you have just too much money and you don't know what to do with, and then you can afford to put it in a speculative venture. And this is really what happens. If you understand and see what's going on in the world of cryptocurrencies, we think it is driven and for the purpose and benefit of the masses, but it's really, by and large, it is a massive game that is controlled, shaped, influenced by mega billionaires and big, venture funds and really the super rich in the world who come into it early on and then hype it up. People buy into it, and then they can't sell. They create massive amount of wealth just because they are, can influence positions, like what Elon Musk did with Dogecoin. By simply suggesting that maybe Tesla will accept Dogecoin, people rush to buy that coin, and then nothing happens instead. But what happened is that Elon Musk bought a few millions of these coins, and now they can easily become billions of dollars for him. So this, again, is really, really incredibly problematic to get into Bitcoin for speculative reasons, and for the matter, into any assets for speculative reasons. Shortcomings can be addressed in both fiat and cryptocurrency systems. Yes, there are challenges, there are shortcomings, but this is not what drives us. I mean, shortcoming does not make us just jump into halal haram conversation. Shortcomings are problems that can be solved. But then to what end? To what purpose? So this is why Muslims should be engaged in the search for solutions that makes the life of Muslims and others better in light of the Shariah. And of course, we care about the mechanisms because that we need to have the right intention and we have to do things in the right manner. But we have to get first hit the right objectives. Final judgment should come after answering a series of critical questions using an appropriate approach. In this specific example, where I have used the Maqasid methodology, covering what we are terming as the economic research phenomenon approach. With that, I'm open for a conversation with the congregation, with the group, and I look forward to your corrections, discussion points, and fruitful conversation. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, sir. Jazakallah khair for your comprehensive presentation. I have many questions, but I will ask one only due to the time issue. I read that now there is new thing known as crypto cards, and mainly they are being used in US. And the working is like that. People who have bitcoins, they can transfer the bitcoins from wallet. They can connect the wallet to the crypto cards, and they can make the payment in local shops or vendors who are accepting the bitcoin as a medium of exchange. And it is mainly happening in US and some places in UK as well. So my question is what do you think from Islamic economics perspective, are these transactions allowed if they are used within these Islamic, injections, like they are making the payment for halal purposes of local vendors who are accepting the payment. So the Bitcoin, the vendor are accepting the Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. So what do you think about it? Jazakallah khair.
So let's put it this way. There are two sides of this transaction. So again, the transaction itself, we don't have an issue with it. That is not the point of this dispute. For me, Bitcoin, if you want to consider it to be a currency, okay, go ahead, use it as a currency. But what would I advise someone who's using Bitcoin as a currency? If you are on the buyer side, currently what most merchants or people who are accepting Bitcoin currencies, what they do, they have their pricing perhaps in Bitcoin, but in the back it is all pegged to, for example, the dollar or the euro or a local currency. And as soon as they receive a payment in Bitcoin, they quickly convert it to the local currency. So it becomes more of a ruse, like, yeah, we're using this. And sometimes this has happened because the people behind Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, they're trying hard to advocate and to put Bitcoins into circulation. And some, like I know in one instance, one rich person donated over $100,000 to a charity in a third world country with a condition that all expenses to any contractor, to anybody who's working in the charity should be made in Bitcoins. So if you're a teacher at that charity or if you're a social worker at that charity, you have to open a Bitcoin account, and then they will put Bitcoins in that account as a payment. And then these people end up going and converting these Bitcoins into the local currency. Now, why would they do that? And this is where the challenge, I would like to say that is why when I say that وَلَا تَبْخَسُ النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُم, is a very important concept in Islam, because many of these people, if you're not aware of the fluctuation and value, if all you've heard is somebody who sold you a story that, hey, this is a great way to become fabulously rich. So suddenly it is no longer about just conducting a transaction, which is what is important in Islam. It is a form of connectivity between people that promote goodwill, connect people to each other. And what I'm trying to paint the picture here is that when I go to the market and I see a person and I buy a piece of food from that person, there is some kind of silat raham between us. There is some kind of connectivity. There is in Muslim society, sometimes there is even an exchange of dua and goodwill and salam. That is huge social construct and that is happening here. And there is also this little, like, a trust. So when we start using Bitcoin and I'm as a seller or as a buyer, I'm not really fully aware or properly understand how quickly Bitcoin loses value or fluctuates in value. Goes up 10%, goes down 20%. Over time, we know it reached $60,000 per, or even close to $70,000 per point, and then drops down to 20,000. This is incredibly disruptive for any single simple transactor or person. So in this way, I strongly discourage these people from transacting in Bitcoin if they are in no way, in no position, are able to manage this fluctuation in the transaction and the purchasing power of Bitcoin. So you see, I'm not coming at it from like a purely dogmatic, this is halal or haram. So number one, do you understand the complexity of using Bitcoin? Do you understand the fluctuation and the purchasing power? Now, there is a situation here that, so circle again, when we discuss Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as if this is the only thing happening, we end up with these kind of sharp positions and opinions. But when we add to the story, well, this person is in the Mozambique. And in Mozambique, the value of the money is trash. It's really nothing. I mean, the currency lost vast majority, 99% of its purchasing power, and it's continued. The inflation rate is hyper. That means, I mean, over 100%, 200,000% a year. So, under these conditions, and if you do not have access to dollars, and this is happening also because there's a corrupt government, and I give that, and under these conditions, I give a person or a population the opportunity to transact in Bitcoins, I think it is perhaps obviously clear that this Bitcoin is a huge improvement over the unjust situation taking place in that economy. So it is a more nuanced. It is not a one-fit-all for everybody everywhere. Now, if I take the same example and say you are like in Malaysia or maybe in Bangladesh after August 7th, and you think you have a reasonably legitimate government, what happens if you are actively trying to undermine the local currency? If you are trying to basically compete with the local currency and you're weakening the local currency, even with a little bit, I said, no. I mean, in this case, if you have a local authority in Bangladesh that you think that it is legitimate, it is just, and it tells you, we need to make sure that our local currency is strong. And if they pass the scholar and ulama and the government pass an opinion, said, no, we need to do this, then I think you should abide by this. So it's actually wali al-amr means something in Islam. If the wali al-amr is just and acting in the best interest of the people. So that's why it is. I know Sister Maria this may is. I mean, that's important that we are nuanced. If I put it in a slightly kind of link it to something else, is eating pork haram? Well, yes, of course, except if you are close to death, and then this is an important way too. So there is always in Islam there is this exception. Under the right circumstance or the bad circumstances, then we might consider different treatment. And same thing here. What are the circumstances according to micro, macro, and social dimension? Use this as a potential framework to answer this question. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you, Prof, for your enlightening answers to the question. I think our moderator has been facing some problems, technical problems. So let's continue our program. There are some other questions, but I think already one question is answered by Professor. As one of the questions said, is it halal to buy Bitcoin? And we have other questions by Fahim. Are Bitcoins produced against US dollar? Proof? In short, if you can say.
Let me just get to that. Is it halal to buy Bitcoin? So usually my first question is, why are you buying Bitcoin? What purpose do you have of getting yourself into Bitcoin? If you say, because I want to use it for transactions, it's like, who are you transacting with? Do you actually have a legitimate business? I mean, I'm asking as a concerned brother, as a concerned fellow Muslim or a friend, why are you trying to get into this? And then you tell me, and then if you, in vast majority, get to the point, because it's going up in value. But you also know that a lot of people lost massive amount of money when the Bitcoin value went down. Then that is, that was a massive loss. Some people sold these Bitcoins at a loss, and that's why it went down to $20,000 per Bitcoin. So here again, if you are into speculation, I don't honestly, sincerely, I do not think it is any business of a Muslim who is really trying to live up to the spirit and of Islam to be involved in Bitcoin for speculative reasons. If you tell me I am in Bitcoin because I am in a place where there's an oppressive government that are tracking every single financial transaction, perhaps you are among the Uyghurs of brothers and sisters in China, and we have, and then you need to use that to avoid the oppression of the Chinese government. I said, of course. If that is one way to escape the oppression of the Chinese Communist Party, go ahead and do it. So this is my answer. It is not a black and white. At least this is not the approach that I take. I think there is a deeper conversation. But if it is speculation, I don't think it is the business of a Muslim to speculate on any asset value. Like if you want, I'm going to buy rights, to speculate that its value might go up in the future. No, that is not what you're supposed to be involved in. You're supposed to be involved in using your money and your wealth to do good on earth. That is the objective of the wealth and money that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, because simply holding rights from the market just to see its value go up, it is not good for the community. That's the social dimension of this is incredibly harmful, and we all end up poorer because of this harmful activities of monopoly and ihtikar and so on and so forth, because of speculative reasons. We should avoid speculative investment. Allahu Alam.
Thank you for before we go through the other questions. I would like to ask Professor Omar Farooq is around here to say something.
No. He is the panelist. So proceed with
Panelist, right? Okay. And we have some panelists, invited panelists, Prof. Omar Farooq, Dr. Gulzar Naveed, Fariduddin, and Mr. Fariduddin. Okay, now let me see some other questions asked by the participant. One of the participant asking the question, as I said, are bitcoins produced against US dollar? As I said,
are bitcoins produced
against US dollar?
Against US dollar?
US dollar.
Okay. If I understand the question, there are two things here. There are cryptocurrencies that are backed by the US dollar. So this would be kind of the stable coins. And in this case, it is US dollar in, the wolf in a sheep's clothes, really. Or it does serve a purpose, but why are you doing that? There are maybe much easier way to transact. Now you can say maybe because of the blockchain technology and I can trace the transaction. So there is a case like that, then maybe there is a good reason for it. Now there is, if I understand the other dimension on this question is, could Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies challenge the US dollar? Right now, all of these cryptocurrencies, number one, are nuisance to the hegemony of the US dollar. Second, again, do you understand how incredibly fragile these promises that Bitcoin is this or that? Number one, the FBI and the other intelligence agencies in the US can track your transactions. Though they know exactly who you are. There is no such delusion. So yes, maybe if you are much more sophisticated and you are using some other sophisticated approaches to transact and to hide your identity and this and that, maybe you'll be a bit safer. But really, at the end of the day, not only they know who you are and what's going on and what you're transacting, but the blockchain itself is a way to track everything happening. So what is supposedly used as to protect privacy is actually one of the best ways to track exactly what you are doing. Second, you think your password is protected? Oh my goodness! That you are in for rude awakening. Most passwords are easy to remember. If not, most of us will forget them, or we all say them somewhere else, and because of that, And even if we don't say them anywhere else, there are ways to crack them or track them. So they do not only know your transaction, they also know your password if they wanted to know. It is one of the easiest things. Our phones spy on us, our computers, everything spy on us. And this most recently, you saw that the founder of Telegram being held up in France. Why? Because they want to have the backdoor to all the encrypted transaction or communication and Telegram. We use WhatsApp. WhatsApp was developed by an Israeli company. I hope you know that. You think the Israelis don't have a backdoor to WhatsApp? So sometimes, it just really just want to emphasize that the U.S. government can put the hammer on the cryptocurrency, on Bitcoin at any point and quickly by demanding taxation, by demanding documentation and or more strict documentation, so on and so forth, and or regulation, and immediately the value of Bitcoin can collapse. And may not go to zero, but would have just go down by 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%. So that's why, sometimes we are involved in a speculative investment, and we do not know how incredibly fragile this valuation of Bitcoin is and other cryptocurrencies. It can really collapse. And it can collapse for simply, it has no intrinsic value. This is a problematic terminology, but I want to emphasize, if it's just simply tomorrow another cryptocurrency became more attractive, more fashionable, suddenly the value of of Bitcoin can collapse as well, because it has not connected to anything. While stable coins backed by gold or this or that can mean something. And so there's just so many details here. But it's not a serious challenge in the dollar as of now. The U.S. government can really severely restrict the circulation of Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies if it wanted to. But now it is allowed. Part of it is there are so many billionaires behind it. And these billionaires, influence the U.S. government and the U.S. legislatures, and that's why we have it still there. Allah.
So thank you. We have another big question. I don't know how far we can cover it. But Dr. Ashraf says that how far we are now, or how close we are to take cryptocurrency in our banking system, while crypto being decentralized currency system or having no central control. How can we make sure if are used in an ethical way? Is it possible from an Islamic principles and Maqasid perspective? Just expecting from Zaid expert opinion.
Okay. Make a quick correction. I am not a professor. And I don't have that title. May I bless you for your, for honoring me. So here, so we say that it is decentralized. And there's all these claims. So again, it depends on the cryptocurrency that we are specifically talking about. So when it comes to Bitcoin, for example, specifically, it has algorithm. And one way, so this is, I'm trying to get the conversation to macro and monetary conversation here. One way to understand where does this fit in an economic theoretical framework, can be close to monetarist approach to money supply, that money supply should be constant, or it has, or it's not dependent on market conditions, especially short-term market conditions. So if you're talking about a rule-based, so it's not necessarily decentralized, it is simply rule-based monetary supply. So we're going to follow this rule no matter what. So this is not something new or never happened, or we have no experience with historically. So that's one thing. Can this be used in our banking system? Now, many of you here are practitioners and actually professionals in the banking sector. Now, imagine having Bitcoins in your portfolio, investing in such investment. What kind of risk mitigation effort that you need to associate with this when the value of an asset on your balance sheet go up and down so much, it will require massive risk management effort from the bank because of like you having, a bond. It might pay a lot or might become incredibly problematic for you. But big corporations, big banks, they can't afford, like, if you're talking Chase, if you're talking something like in the hundreds of billions of dollars, so if they invest a few $1 billion in Bitcoin, maybe it's really a tiny portion of their investment portfolio, and they can manage it easily. So just like one thing, can you have it in banking sector? Yes, sure. Can you lend it? I mean, just imagine having a qard hasan or having a murabaha based on Bitcoin, and the value is go up and down, especially this factor that you have a currency that you are holding because you think it's going to increase in value. Now, one thing that happens with, basically, this is, let's say, under monetary theory, we consider that, discuss this under deflationary, deflated currency. When you have a situation, one of the major challenges with this is that people want to hold on to their money. Because if I think the dollar that I have will have more purchasing power tomorrow, then I have an incentive not to spend it today. All right? Just like that gentleman who bought the pizzas for $10,000. He knew that if we were going to go up, then he will definitely not have done that. I would have gone probably hungry for a few days before considering doing so. So what that leads, then it leads to contraction in the economy, and everybody ends up worse off. So again, the challenge of speculation really hurts everybody in the economy and in a society. So that's why, and again, it is really hard to use this currency as a medium of exchange or as a unit of deferred judgment or payment, like in a loan, because you do not know where its value going to go up or down, and for what reason. So it is incredibly hard. Now, one interesting thing is that one of the claims that it will get us to 100% reserve banking. Number one, I have a grave reserve against for those who advocate 100% reserve banking. I'm not sure why they think it is intrinsically an Islamic. There is a long discussion there. But if we just simply focus, any Bitcoin and cryptocurrency potentially can be used in a fractional reserve system. So it is not really excluded from that system. Now, you get to the point of how it is being used. So this is the social dimension, and it's a case by case, really. Those who are using anything for the wrong reason, of course, it is haram. But there's certain situation, like we have one weird situation in America regarding gun laws. Americans are, crazy about owning multiple guns, and a gun by itself or a fire weapon, maybe it is halal to own. But the result is that most of the people who die by guns are people in the household because of gun misfiring accidents. So here the issue, and think itself is halal, that the way its impact on the society and the community is massive amount of loss of life because of the misuse of this instrument. So the same thing here with cryptocurrencies in general and Bitcoin. We have to understand in general which class of people should be able to handle cryptocurrencies and who should not. And if there is an overwhelming backdoor to use cryptocurrencies for illicit and illegal activities, then yes, we can, a certain government or authority can take a position that it should not be used because it is fueling, for example, drug trade in Bangladesh. And you are right close to Myanmar, Arakan, and the Triangle. And if you see that, then you can prohibit the use of cryptocurrency if it is, facilitating drug use. But this is not a general fatwa everywhere in every place. It depends on the situation in a country by country. Allah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have three distinguished panelists today. including Professor Dr. Omar Farooq. Also, I see there are a number of distinguished participants who have raised their hands to ask questions to our honorable speaker. So before going to our panelists, I would like to give honor two of them to speak, to ask question within a very short possible time. Firstly, I would like to call upon Dr. Nazmul, who has raised hand. Please briefly introduce you and a question to our honorable speaker.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for your insightful knowledge. I would like to raise a question. There is an argument that cryptocurrencies do not qualify as money under Sharia due to their lack of intrinsic value or anonymous ownerships or sometimes volatility. So could you please share your insight on this matter, and that how cryptocurrency could be? Yeah, there are some Sharia issues, I think. So please.
May Allah bless you. And I just want to emphasize that, I had many Bangladeshi professors of economics and Islamic economics, teachers, like Dr. Atta al-Haq, who taught for many years at the International Islamic University. So it is really an honor to speak to you and everybody else here. Alhamdulillah. So I actually mentioned the example of the camel hide for this important reason. What is the value, specific intrinsic value of a camel hide? Why a seashell is important or has any meaning or value? I think we just impose restrictions on the conversation that does not really necessary. It does not need to be there. So how do we consider the intrinsic value of a camel hide? I mean, it just because people use it, and yes, maybe it has some scarcity, and there's some effort put into treating that hide. And this is what people who are using cryptocurrencies think, that there is a mining process and an algorithm, and there is spending of time and electric power and computing power to produce it, so that is this or that. So there is a value to it. Ultimately, I don't think this is, but yes, many scholars have this as a major concern. But this is, I was trying to say from the beginning, Muslims use gold, silver, copper, and many other metals, cheaper metals that are really very cheap, to facilitate the affairs of the people. So why did you use this one? And there's a whole issue, like in the fulus. Aslan, when you say the issue of the fulus in our Muslim history, because bronze and cheaper actually metals was introduced because people needed small change to conduct their transactions. So I do not think this is, personally, I don't think this is a valid critique of cryptocurrencies, that because they do not have, again, intrinsic value. Concept of intrinsic value is very problematic itself. It is very hard. Intrinsic value in investment means something completely different. This is just like return and something that generates income, and then you try to calculate intrinsic value. Now we're talking about what is the intrinsic value of a brick of gold. It does not produce anything. So it's possible that if it goes out of fashion, or suddenly Arabs and Indians and Bangladesh stop using gold as ornament and clothing, and then maybe it will just really also collapse in value. So it's very hard to deal with intrinsic value conversation. And we can have a deeper conversation about this. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, is not a very strong reason to prohibit or to simply put a blanket statement. Now, that being said, one of the reasons I presented, look, there are many different categories of cryptocurrencies, and we can have a cryptocurrency that is backed by oil, like the petrol by Venezuela, backed by gold and silver and other basket of currencies, and so on and so forth. So you can remedy this situation with this kind of backing. So what is advisable? Okay, what would be in the spirit of the Sharia? I think it is, I would definitely advise that if you are dealing with a cryptocurrency that is not issued by an official government, see, one thing that the government of Bangladesh issue a currency. This currency, at least, there is a way to use this currency to pay taxes. The government of Bangladesh will have to accept this in its transactions, so there is a recognized body that will accept this money no matter what. So that gives it also legitimacy. All right. So if it is very important that if we are adopting or promoting a cryptocurrency, ask for this cryptocurrency, look very carefully at the government, and it's a very good idea of this cryptocurrency that is decentralized to have some kind of backing by real world asset, And I want to now quickly also emphasize something I mentioned quickly in the presentation. There is a huge debate about this fiat currency as backed by nothing. That is not correct in my opinion, and I can be wrong. Fiat currencies are backed by a social contract. The social contract says that this dollar represents purchasing power, and I'm trusting the government to protect this purchasing power. That's why we advocate for the independence of the monetary authority, like the central bank. And by the way, independence of the central authority is something that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah called for, because during his time, the Mamluk rulers who controlled Egypt all the way to Damascus, they were debasing the currency. They were shaving and reducing the amount of gold and silver in the currency. So he said, take the control over the currency from the Mamluk rulers and let the people who are in charge of the monetary currency to be self-independent and get paid from the Beit al-Mal independently of the government. So what I'm trying to say here is that it is very important to emphasize, fairness and independence and the protection and having the social contract, because the people at the time of Ibn Taymiyyah and the Mamluk, they had a trust that the people who are issuing these gold and silver coins will respect the amount of gold and silver they expect in these coins. Now, if the government start cheating because they want to basically expand monetary supply, have expansionary monetary policy because they want to pay for maybe a new palace or pay for a new even social project, a new dam or irrigation system, whatever it is. And this is violating a social contract. So there is a social contract that the government will protect the purchasing power, and it is important to emphasize that. So it is not just really backed by nothing, it is backed by a social contract. And if that social contract is violated, this is where I say that people might have the option of going after other currencies, like dollar or euro or yen or so on and so forth, or go into cryptocurrencies. Wallahu alam.
Thank you very much. With that, we are going to end the Q&A session.